Good morning, everybody. We're just clearing out the waiting room. We'll get started here momentarily. All right, everybody. It is 10:01. Thank you very much for joining us today. I want to say good morning and welcome to today's webinar hosted by Biocom California and the Greater Sacramento Economic Council. The topic of today's webinar is the future of regenerative medicine. My name is Scott Powell. I'm the Senior Vice President for the Greater Sacramento Economic Council. This program will begin momentarily, but before we kick it off, I want to provide a few quick housekeeping notes for our audience. We have a great program today for you, and we'll be discussing the future of regenerative medicine and the panel discussion surrounding the emerging trends in cell and gene therapy. Additionally, please note that today's program will be recorded. If you do have any questions during the program for our panelists, please use the chat function, and myself, Lucy, or the person moderating will do their best to address the question as they come up. GSEC is pleased to partner with the statewide life science association, Biocom California, for today's webinar. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce Joe Panetta, the president and CEO of Biocom California. Joe, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Scott. First of all, I just want to say what a great pleasure it is to partner with the Greater Sacramento Economic Council and to host this webinar today. It's just been great to see the growth that's been taking place in life science in the Sacramento area, and I followed that over the last few years, and we're looking forward to working with you more. Thank you all for joining us today. My name's Joe Panetta, and I'm president and CEO of Biocom California, the statewide association for our life science industry here, powerhouse life science industry in California. For over 25 years, we've led the life science industry, and today we represent more than 1,400 companies and other members across the state. We're the industry's advocate. We provide business products and business services through various programs for the industry. We lead capital development and partnering programs to provide opportunities for companies to raise money and to work together to develop their products. We conduct workforce development programs, and we foster programs that allow people to network and collaborate more effectively. And again, we're very pleased to partner with GSEC today. I'm also a member of the Independent Citizens Oversight Committee for the California Institute of Regenerative Medicine. That's an appointment that the prior governor gave me back in 2014, and I was recently reappointed by Governor Newsom. It's a true honor, and I strongly believe in the work that SHRM undertakes, and I strongly believe in the process of regenerative medicine to address a myriad of diseases that we have been otherwise unable to conquer. I know you're going to be hearing today from my very good friend and colleague, our chairman, John Thomas, later on in the program, and it's also a pleasure to be here on this program with you, JT. This past year has truly unleashed unprecedented challenges for the life sciences industry. There's, of course, no refuting the horrible impact that SARS-CoV-2 has had across the globe. But I think you'll also agree that the life science industry has risen to the challenge to bring diagnostics and therapeutics and vaccines to market in record time, something that no one expected, not even Dr. Fauci. It's truly astonishing. We've seen breakthrough products also during this time period across the disease spectrum, from cancer to diseases to the brain and the heart, to other chronic illnesses. And I want to just publicly here thank all of our leaders who deserve our appreciation for all the work that they've done in this industry, working under these stressful pandemic conditions to continue their research and R&D and to bring products to market, which took just an amazing amount of courage and resilience and agility, and to the people in the industry who went to work throughout this pandemic. I honor all of the work that they did as well. So what these challenges have revealed is that it's the work that research and development conducts in this industry, the work that goes on by our scientists at universities and research institutes throughout the state that is truly going to save the world in the future. We at Biocom California work with companies throughout the state. And it, again, is so gratifying to see the work that's going on and the growth in the greater Sacramento region with UC Davis and other universities at the center of the regional ecosystem, and this California entrepreneurial spirit that we have that you don't see anywhere else, driving us forward with unparalleled momentum. So we're excited to see this emerging Sacramento cluster and how it's flourishing. And please know that we appreciate and support the important work that companies in the Sacramento area are doing and look forward to more collaboration in the future. We're here to support the greater Sacramento area in any way that's needed. Also, we have an executive director dedicated to the success of our Northern California life science community. And I invite you to reach out to Michelle Nemitz, who leads our office located in South San Francisco. We also in Sacramento have our California Biotechnology Foundation, which has been focused for more than 10 years on education and information for legislators and the public on what we do so successfully in this industry. And I'd invite you to reach out to Patty Cooper, our executive director there. And please reach out to me as well. We're always available to help. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Alvin Cheung, GSEC board member and founding president of California Northstate University, one of 13 medical schools in the state of California. Dr. Cheung.
Well, thank you, Joe, for the introduction. Good morning and aloha from the north side of Oahu. I'm having a good time in Hawaii. First time get out of the California, but welcome all of you. And thank you for making time to join this very exciting speakers, cadres of speakers that will introduce the regenerative medicine. And then one of the great reasons that the greater Sacramento has been experiencing a boom in the growth of the life science companies, and that is because the region has over 500 companies and employing 17,000 life science, jobs. And not to mention during the pandemic, several major cell and gene therapy companies have looked at the greater Sacramento as an expansion market for future research and development and manufacturing. It's a prime region in many respects. The region's growing life science market is rooted in its strong capacity in the research from the UC Davis and the emerging life science companies. And then 4 major hospital systems, and soon to be adding a 5th, and numerous clinical trials being conducted. Within life science, the region has strong focus on regenerative medicine. Especially, there has been a great research and clinical trials done in the treating spinal injuries, both in human and as well as in animals. It is interesting to see where regenerative medicine is heading and what types of research and treatments are being conducted. Now, without further delay, I would like to pass it on to John Thomas, Chairman of California Institute for Regenerative Medicine, the organization responsible for over $5.5 billion in funding for stem cell research, to share about the budget plan for regenerative medicine. Without further ado, please join me to welcome Dr. Thomas. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the sponsors as well. It's a great pleasure to be here, to have the opportunity to speak to all of you. Special shout out to my friend and colleague, Joe Panetta, who does a fantastic job with Biocom all over the state and in generating real interest and greatly accelerating the biotechnology field across all different disciplines. Special shout out as well to Dean Allison Pragier, who's another one of our CERM board colleagues, to Jim Kovach for being an alternate member to our board, to our good friend Jan Nolta, who is the director of the Stem Cell Program and Gene Therapy Center at UC Davis, and to Dr. Gerhard Bauer, who runs all of the manufacturing and is one of our favorite people in the state as well. Have a very close affinity to UC Davis and to the Sacramento area through the work that CERM has done. I've been asked to speak a bit about what CERM is and where we are at the moment and where it's going. For those of you who are not familiar with this agency, back in 2004, my predecessor as board chair, his name is Bob Klein, who had a son with type 1 diabetes, felt that stem cell therapy was going to be something that held great promise for that particular condition. At the time, you may recall, the administration had a funding ban on NIH research for creating additional embryonic stem cell lines for researchers around the country, which basically stalled the field. So Mr. Klein was able to get enough signatures to qualify what was Prop 71 for the 2004 ballot. It was approved overwhelmingly by the voters to create this public-private partnership with the state and with academia and industry, and allocated $3 billion of state general obligation bond money to the effort to be used for granting funds to academic institutions, research institutions, and biotech companies in the field of regenerative medicine. Importantly, all in California, since the taxpayers of California were footing the bill for the bonds that were issued to back the grants. In the early days, the field was brand new, more or less. So the initial funding that CERM put out was what you might expect. It went to seed grants, it went to training grants, it went to setting up shared labs that different institutions could use. Importantly, I went to 12 different stem cell centers that were either new freestanding buildings or refurbished existing buildings or floors around the state, because in those days, the state money had to be segregated from federal money to make sure that no federal dollars were being spent on stem cell research. So we have 12 state-of-the-art facilities around the state. UC Davis has a fantastic facility that Dr. Nolta and Dr. Bauer run with their colleagues. As time went by and the field matured, we first started with basic research grants in the field. That paved the way for what we call translational, which is research being done in between the basic research and human clinical trials. Think animal models and trials in that area. And then ultimately to clinical trials themselves as the field got far enough along to actually start in on that. To date, through Prop 71, CERM put out over 1,200 grants around the state, starting mostly with academia, but as many of the projects ended up generating spin-outs and new companies, the CERM has been awarding grants increasingly to companies as well. These grants have gone now to over 70 different entities in connection with over 70 different diseases. And when one thinks of stem cell, you might not think that it goes to a wide range of diseases, but in point of fact, it actually applies to many different diseases, starting with the most prevalent, with cancer, with diabetes, with neurodegenerative, with vision disorders, et cetera, all the way down to rare diseases or what they call orphan diseases. CERM has funded the full range. And one of the things we are most proud about is starting from 0 clinical trials when things were new. We're now up to 70 clinical trials that we have funded, and another 30 plus where we funded earlier stage research that was ultimately funded in the clinical trial stage by somebody else. So that puts us at over 100 different projects across many different conditions that we're responsible for funding with this tremendous talent pool that we have here in California. The money we put out, tens of millions of dollars has gone to UC Davis, whether for research or one of the great programs they have is one that we have at a number of entities around the state, which we call the Alpha Stem Cell Clinic. And these clinics are soup to nuts places for patients to go to actually enroll in clinical trials, whether it's CIRM funded projects or it's other kinds of projects funded by other people. And I believe we have over 1,200 patients enrolled in the 5 Alpha clinics, of which UC Davis is one. It's been a very successful program. It's a network unlike any other in the country, frankly, as by the way is CIRM. You might be interested to know that there's something about the pioneering spirit of California and the frontier mentality and always wanting to be on the cutting edge. And that has led to the whole idea of CIRM. And it's the only state in the country that's been able to actually put together this program, though others have tried. There are some other state programs, but those are funded through annual appropriations of the respective state legislatures. In California, we have the luxury of the agency itself can draw down every 6 months, however much it needs to fund grants for the ensuing period. And as a result, and we have to keep the state informed of what we're doing, and in fact have an annual meeting with the state controller and a committee that she impanels to give them updates on the budget and the programs, et cetera. But largely, we have autonomy to make these grants happen, which is a great luxury. And one of the reasons we're able to do this is, in addition to having an incredible team led by President and CEO, Dr. Maria Milan, and her in-house team, and our board, which is rather large. It now is 35 members, of which Joe and Allison and I are 3. We have, in order to make these grants happen, an unparalleled pool of international and national stem cell experts who meet literally now about twice a month to go over grant applications from all places, such as UC Davis, and they evaluate these projects on scientific merit. They also, that group includes, importantly, 7 patient advocates from CIRM, which deal with evaluating those projects. We pay great attention to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and projects and teams are evaluated as to various criteria pertaining to DEI that our patient advocates review in those peer review sessions. They, as a group, make recommendations to the board, and then the board goes about undertaking evaluating which ones we want to actually fund. I should report to you that $3 billion is a lot of money. We actually ran through it last year, and Bob Klein, once again, came back and really pulled off another huge win for patients by, again, getting 1 million+ signatures to get what was Prop 14 on the ballot. And this time for $5.5 billion, making CIRM now an $8.5 billion program. And Bob, again, he was now, of course, outside of CIRM, I having taken over for him just about exactly 10 years ago now. Bob ran the campaign, and it passed as well, which was a monumental moment, not just for California, but for the nation and the world, because CIRM has had such an exceptional role in enabling world-class research with a large amount of money to be able to do it and to accelerate the field like very few areas of the world have been able to do. So we now have Prop 14, which has the $5.5 billion. The board has been busily at work figuring out how we are going to allocate and apportion that. It has a few bells and whistles that are above and beyond what Prop 71 provided for. Notably, of the 5.5, $1.5 billion is earmarked for diseases of the brain, which is always a challenge. The neurological disorders are amongst the most difficult to treat generally, and using cellular and gene therapy is no exception for a variety of reasons. That's why there's going to be special focus in that area, leaving $4 billion for all the other dramatic needs that we have out there in curing disease. Another of the new elements of this, because the field is advancing and products are now starting to come to market, we are going to be grappling with issues of accessibility and affordability for all citizens of California, particularly in underserved areas. So towards that end, Prop 14 provides for an accessibility and affordability working group, which is made up of 7 board members from CIRM and 10 outside experts in the field. Proud to say one of those is Ann Boynton from UC Davis, who has great expertise in hospital administration, deals with insurance and payor issues and accessibility to the underserved, as, by the way, does Dean Brashear, who has tremendous experience in exactly that. And so with them involved in this, we are very pleased to be embarking on this accessibility and affordability effort, and stay tuned for more about that in later years. The CIRM has a strategic plan that every 5 years. Ours finished most recently in December of 2020. We are now embarked on that development of the next plan for the next 5 years, and that'll be coming out later this year. The field we are extremely enthusiastic about. These are very tough conditions and diseases to crack, but we are firmly of a mind that because of the incredible work by scientists at UC Davis and elsewhere around the state, both in public institutions and private and companies, that there will be a number of cures, and happily CIRM is set up for another 10 to 15 years as a result of Proposition 14. So we will be squarely in the middle of that, and look forward to, as we have to date, working with Jan and Gerhard and the team there at UC Davis and all of their colleagues around the state to further enable the A+ work and to really make a major contribution to the practice of medicine. So as citizens of California, we should all be extremely proud that we are able to play this role, and it's been a great privilege for me and Joe and Allison to serve on this board and to help make all of this happen. So again, thank you all very much for the opportunity to speak. And without further ado, I would like to turn it over to Jan to take it from here. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, John, and thank you so much to CIRM for all that CIRM has done for the state and for our program. I'm Jan Nolta. I direct the Stem Cell Program and the Gene Therapy Center here at UC Davis. And we're in Sacramento in the Institute for Regenerative Cures, which is here at the corner of Stockton and Broadway. I went to CSUS, graduated from Sac State, went to UC Davis for my master's, and then went down to Los Angeles to train with Don Cohn, one of the leaders in gene therapy, stem cell gene therapy, for 15 years. And then 15 years ago, largely due to CIRM, I came back to the region to start our stem cell program. And so we have grown a lot in the last 15 years, largely due to CIRM. This slide that's shown here at UC Davis, we currently, a snapshot in time, currently have 47 cell and or gene therapy clinical trials ongoing, with over 20 in the pipeline. Some of these are investigator initiated, or what we call homegrown here in Sacramento, and others are in collaboration with industry partners, and we always do welcome the industry partners. So this slide is just showing the different teams. We meet as teams of scientists, translational researchers, and clinical researchers to try to bring the cutting edge science to our patients. And I feel that due to the teamwork, the huge amount of teamwork that we have here in Sacramento and our can-do spirit, we've really been able to achieve a lot. The teams with the green arrows are showing ongoing clinical trials, and the red are clinical trials on which we're working to get approval from the FDA. So we've started that conversation. So before we get started with the panel, I would like to remind everyone that we do have a Q&A portion following our questions for the panel. And if you do have a question for our panelists, please put that in the chat box. So to open things up, I'll go around and have our panelists give a brief introduction, starting with Jim Kovach at UC Davis School of Medicine. Jim, please.
Thanks, Jan. Hi, everyone. My name is Jim Kovach. I'm a physician attorney that works in the School of Medicine and Health System, primarily in innovation, trying to connect our faculty with innovative programs that are interdisciplinary, but also are connected to industry. And also have a role in Aggie Square, the innovation district that was recently, last week, approved by the University of California in general, and we'll commence building in early 2022, which will be a home for additional programs at UC Davis. It'll be a Sacramento campus, as well as industry partners. So really excited about that, and really very bullish on Greater Sacramento and the role we'll play in cell and gene therapy. The stage is set, thanks in large part to CIRM, as Jonathan mentioned. The funding that is provided not only is going to advance the field, but serve as a catalyst for industry co-location in conjunction with important areas like cell and gene therapy. So thanks, great to be on the panel.
Thank you so much, Jim. And next we'll go to Cate Dyer, CEO of StemExpress.
Thank you, Jan, and good morning, everyone. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. So good morning. Excited to join Jim and others here in discussions today. I'm Cate Dyer. I'm the CEO for StemExpress. Founded the company 11 years ago right here in our region. And excited to say today we have over 175 employees, have 8 locations around the United States, and have a real global impact in biotech as a whole. What StemExpress does is generally a bit complicated, but I'll try to sum it up by saying that we support great research at all stages being done on a global scale. So that can exist in starting in R&D, moving into clinical trials, and also the commercialization of those products to market as well. How we do that is we have our own collection centers around the United States where patients and or just normal healthy donors can come participate in different application studies, clients' work that we do all over the place. And so, an example might be that we're sourcing patients who have Hodgkin's lymphoma, or patients that have been treated for breast cancer but have recovered, all sorts of different work that's being done on a global scale needs participants, essentially at different levels of the R&D through clinical approval process. And so what StemExpress does is essentially facilitates that great work. We also have partnerships with healthcare, and that's a kind of a unique part of us as well. So we have 38 different hospitals we work with here in the United States, 50 we work with in Europe, and through those partnerships have kind of varying different degrees that we participate in. Some might be where our staff's on site collecting umbilical cord blood, as was earlier mentioned, for cells that are so precious that come out of that. Others could be in scenarios where we're actually partnering with the hospital and really talking about how our centers and locations can help benefit and execute the commercialization of some of these products coming to market. And I think that's where I would say, today, we'll definitely get into a lot of questions here, but the most exciting part of what we see coming in this market is all of these great things that are now getting approved. How do we execute those on a commercial scale? How do those become normal practice within a healthcare environment? These are big, big questions, and something that StemExpress, I'm proud to say, is right in the center of. So thank you for asking me to be on today. I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Great, thank you so much. So I think we'll just jump into the questions that have been submitted. So the first one, what are the most recent trends in regenerative medicine? Jim, would you like to kick that one off?
Yeah, I would like to comment on, just to make a point to the audience of the kind of therapies we're talking about here. I mean, this is not like a pill that is developed and it's just shipped out to everyone. These are actually delivered and manufactured in a rather unique way. I mean, oftentimes they're cells that are taken from a patient, then engineered essentially to be able to combat cancer, for example, in something we call CAR T cells. And that manufacturing process is very expensive. I wanted to kind of connect this with Chairman Thomas's comment about affordability and accessibility, because currently in the first iteration, this often happens in innovation. You're able to get something FDA approved, but the supply chain is very complicated. It requires a lot of travel by patients and individuals to get their blood drawn, and they go back. They have to come back and forth. And one of the trends that we and others are really, and CIRM is really supporting is better manufacturing methodologies to reduce the cost, which will increase the accessibility, and just to make it more feasible to do locally. I think you're going to see a lot about this in the upcoming months and years in terms of localized manufacturing as a trend for what we call autologous therapies. And that's something that's going to benefit California. It's going to benefit the training and workforce. And it's also going to facilitate industry of locating in California, because we're so far ahead of other regions in developing this industry. So that's one thing, and perhaps we could kind of go back and forth. I've got a couple others, but I want others to share their thoughts on the trends of what we see in the next 5 or 10 years. Manufacturing innovation is one that I think is important.
Yeah, that's an important. Very important, Jim. Thank you. And we also call it point of care for those in the audience, where we get the cells from the patient from the hospital, do the manufacturing here or right outside the hospital, right nearby, and return the cells to the patient. And so point of care is incredibly important, and getting that to all the patients throughout California, very important. Cate, what do you think are the most recent trends in regenerative medicine?
Yeah, Jim, thank you. And Jim, thank you for that piece of it too. I don't know if you could see me, I was nodding my head when you were speaking, Jim. I think we're on the exact same page. I mean, I see this as a localized need, and specifically to CAR T, we support 12 of the large CAR T companies right now. And I think that one of the things that we find is this idea of, once we've sort of moved into a true commercial stage of medicine, if you will, but of treating patients, how does that actually get executed? And what does that look like on a local basis, as everyone mentioned? And I think for us, we see this as a crucial integrative step. Most of the hospital partners that we work with, and over the last couple of years in conversations that I've been in, with these healthcare partners, they're not built as cellular centers, right? So it's, when you think about healthcare and its sort of current status, there are very few that stand out to us, especially in the United States, that are really set up in a way to functionally be able to do some of the necessary work, which even just specific, let's say, to CAR T. And when I talk to the CAR T manufacturers that are currently in place, and we think about the costs and the manufacturing steps and everything, you know, we all sort of generally know in science, if you have a bad starting product, you have a bad outcome. And so it's really incredibly crucial that these specimens that are collected up front be done in a fashion that produces the highest yields for downstream therapies. And so where we've been really focused is how can we help fill that gap through partnership with healthcare, where we are used to the clients that are doing this kind of work. We understand their impacts and implications to what they need. And how is it really through partnership with healthcare to help produce these results? Instead of what I've seen so many of my biotech clients over the last 5 years really struggle with, is they think they can just lean on healthcare and somehow they will absorb the necessary need to be able to fill the gaps to these exciting gene therapies and cell therapies that are coming to market. And like I said, through my conversations with healthcare, I just don't see that being the right solution. I think that it's a struggle in most of the institutions where it's being done currently. There are all sorts of scenarios where it's taking hospitals, close to 24 months to do their very first CAR T patient. How can we accelerate that through good relationships, working relationships, and partnerships? And I think that's what's going to be key to the types of trends that come forward over the next 5 to 10 years.
Great, thank you so much. And for anyone in the audience who doesn't know what CAR T is, we use a lot of abbreviations in our field. That's chimeric antigen receptor T lymphocytes. And it's where we take cells from the patient's, cells from a cancer patient's immune system and engineer them to be more responsive to the tumor and expand them in numbers and then put them back into the patient. And that's one of the huge things, and really a lot of opportunity in the field right now. So thank you both for talking about that. Here's one for Jim. What's the importance of using regenerative medicine in animals and humans, our best friends?
Well, certainly there are many applications. Animals often suffer from, as patients, as we know from our own veterinary school, many of the same diseases that have human counterparts. And so in terms of supporting preclinical research in a way that actually helps the animals and gathers data for ultimate human application, there's a natural synergy there, and we can learn between the different fields, and in fact do. I know, Jan, you have very close connections from a research perspective with our veterinary school, and it's just a synergistic thing. Now, CERM, of course, is focused on human applications, but it just points to the, in some ways the complexity, but also the community of scientific interest that comes together, and indeed points yet again to why Sacramento is just a natural region for regenerative medicine. I know many of the individuals who are interested at, say, UCSF and other UC schools actually travel to Davis to actually get access to some of the capabilities we have there, including Diana Farmer, who we're going to talk about soon. I have a story about her. So very important, and perhaps Cate has other comments, but those are mine.
Great. Did you want to add
Yeah,
anything?
thank you. Yes, yeah, thank you, Jim. And, I'll just say for the audience, sort of respectively, that I think oftentimes people don't realize, how much sort of mouse models really mimic our human models internally, and really the importance of being able to have good access there on animal models is a crucial step to everything we do. And I'll mention briefly, share a story with the group that I think will hopefully help solidify this. A couple of years ago, we were in a project with Jackson Labs here locally, And through that project, we were actually providing the cells necessary for them to do their human mouse model work. And at the time, I can't remember the grant that was associated with this in California, and it may have actually had certain funding. So my apologies if I misspeak that, or someone can tie in there later on with this. But it was actually where they would take the cells that we would collect on a local basis, inject these into mice, and then actually receive patient-specific tumors and actually engraft those on the mice that were there at Jackson. And ultimately, they would treat those mice with different drugs and essentially see which one responded to the tumor. And I'm saying this at a very high level, again, just wanting our audience to really engage with this. But I think one of the crucial things is they could actually take that information and call back to the doctors and tell the physician treating the patient which drugs were having better responsive treatments to the tumor that was showing up on these animal models. And for anyone that's ever had a family member or loved one who's gone through cancer treatment, sometimes the hardest step is trying to figure out what will be responsive to that person's type of cancer. And so we go through numerous variations of different types of medications or radiation to try to get to the answer of what will work. In most of that time, people have seen loved ones really struggle, their immune system becomes weaker as we're sort of testing and trying different things on patients in medicine to treat their cancer. So these models actually play a huge role in reducing the amount of time necessary to actually be able to test those things and see what kind of results we get. So that story always stands out to me as a great one to try to share with the general public to show why it's so crucial that we're able to use animal models with this work.
Thank you so much. The humanized mice are so important for testing many things. Thank you for bringing that up. And I'd like to add that our veterinary school, that's the #1 in the nation, UC Davis School of Veterinary Medicine, they have the Veterinary Institute for Regenerative Cures. Mm-hmm. And so for companion animals, dogs, cats, and horses, they can receive stem cell therapies. So if you have an ailing companion, please check them out. They may have a clinical trial for it. So let's see, the next one would go to Jim. Can you please elaborate on launching the world's first FDA-approved clinical trial using stem cells to treat Spina Bifida before the child is born?
Yeah, this is an exciting CIRM-sponsored project that I think also gives a good kind of illustration of how these therapies are advanced. Spina bifida is a neural tube defect that results in babies that are born with a spinal cord that's not closed and leading to long-term motor difficulties and has historically been treated by surgery after birth, but Dr. Diana Farmer, a UC Davis surgeon, pioneered in utero surgical applications that really helped the outcomes of these kids. About 70,000 individuals live in the US with spina bifida. She identified the logic and is close to actually, through a CIRM grant, dosing the first patient of combining the now standard of care that she set in utero surgery with a placental mesenchymal stem cell. These are stem cells that secrete the proteins that basically assist in healing in a matrix along with the surgery. And so that is something that based on animal models, and we're hopeful that in the first soon-to-be patients that the outcomes will even improve even more. And it's an example of, in my view, of great science innovation, CIRM funding, and now with phase 1 safety, and we'll collect efficacy data through 30 months on these kids. But I think far earlier in that, we'll have an indication of whether these mesenchymal stem cells in this matrix, which is tissue engineering, which is another big theme that I think we talked about, what is up and coming. So the combination of matrices and other kinds of medical devices, essentially with stem cells, is really kind of pioneering. and I think could support an entire new sector of the industry. And for us at UC Davis, we do the clinical trials through the support of David Lubarsky and Allison Brashear, our Vice Chancellor and Dean. But we need and work through go-to-market with partners. And this is one that's actually, we are right at the stage we're starting to look for partners. So if anyone's out there wants to talk about it, please give us a call. Because this could be a product or potentially a company that basically brings this and other tissue engineering products to the marketplace if this is successful, as we hope that it will be. So stay tuned. It's a fantastic story, and one that really identifies a patient population that is very logical, and I think you're going to see more of, and that is younger patients. These are obviously this is pre-birth patients, so probably the best example of intervening early that could change a lifetime, literally. Just think of the morbidity that could be reduced, upon a successful, journey here. So kudos to Dr. Aijun Wang and Dr. Diana Farmer.
Thank you, Jim. And we have a audience question now. Can you comment on biomedical science job market in Sacramento area? Cate, would you like to start on that?
Sure, yeah, happy to. I mean, we have hired so many people in this last year, and I think there's a tremendous amount of job opportunities growing within our region, which is really exciting. When I started StemExpress, 11 years ago, there were just a handful of biotechs that were being tracked closely, and so many of those biotechs were struggling to get, funding in our region, and oftentimes funded by, outside areas like the Bay Area, and immediately moved to the Bay Area. I know that when I first started the company, I was approached often by Bay Area investors that said, we could do something here and move the company out of the area, out of the Sacramento region. I think that one of the things that is so interesting is that I think there's an incredible amount of talent here in our student pools at Davis, at Sac State, that really is looking for great jobs within our region. So, part of my love for GSAC and Barry Broom is really how do we create great job opportunities here for them, and replicative companies like StemExpress that have grown organically in our region without outside investment necessary to do so, and create these jobs here. And for the companies that do need funding, right, what does it look like for local fundings like Sac City Angels and other groups to get involved to help fund these types of businesses as they move out of academic into the private sector and create an environment for them. So I think there are lots of great job opportunities here, more growing all the time. I think to touch on a little bit of what Jim said with Diana Farmer's work, I think there is a key to really public-private partnerships. And I think that if you look at most cities around the United States that have done this well, it's through these interchanges that we actually create more jobs on a regional basis and collectively work as a group between academic and private sector. And, I think that's what I like to see in our market. That's what I want to continue to support in other businesses that are growing in the region, and also through working with public entities to help create those paths.
Thank you so much. So important. And then Jim, would you like to address that, and maybe something about Aggie Square if you have anything on hand?
Yeah, let's see. I want to, let's see.
Can you share?
Well, okay. Can people, let's see, can people see that or not? Did I know? Oh, here it is. Yeah, here we go.
Here we go.
Yeah, just to show, I think combining infrastructure, got the Aggie Square website here that shows the set of new buildings and the themes with what I will call, some swagger about just really kind of with Sacramento, just like, just showing the rest of the world what we have here, which I think historically we've had it, but now we got to show it, and so, kudos to Barry and Jonathan for his support. It's really kind of time to open up here. We have new leadership of the health system. We have 1 million square feet that's pictured here, that's going to be divided between wet lab with a vivarium and many cores that we're going out of the way to make accessible to industry partners, including startups that don't have access to cores but need it. Lifelong learning, we're going to be training and providing manufacturing, cell and gene therapy manufacturing courses at all levels for individuals to help grow the industry and connect students who want to basically settle close to where they got their degree or certificate and not have to travel to San Francisco. We have a whole sector of community-based activities to draw in the surrounding community of Sacramento and be a good neighbor. Those deals that include housing, student housing, have all been set. And so it's got the whole portfolio. And oh, by the way, it's basically adjacent to one of the largest and best health medical centers and health systems in the world. You know, it's really exciting that it's an innovation district that's going to draw people in with undergraduates from the University of California, Davis. Now moving, it's gonna be 20, you know, kind of a vibrant and active environment. So so definitely, I think that this is the dawn of a new era for Sacramento, and really appreciate. I think others do as well. I think Barry, working with Barry and GSAC has been great. The support from CERM that's been there and going to be there is great. And we are actively recruiting larger medical device and cell gene therapy companies to locate and put large scale manufacturing as well as innovation. And what we can do as an organization, or as a region, is really kind of provide the pipeline, get venture capitalists involved and professionals, and really seed startups that are really kind of the draw for these larger companies. And I'm really looking forward to the next 5 to 10 years.
Right, it's so exciting. I agree. And Cate, maybe you can wrap us up here on why Sacramento is poised to be a hub. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Jen, and thank you, Jim. I would just say to all of those, entities that are looking at establishing businesses here, or those looking at starting companies here. I know for me that, I had lived in Santa Barbara for a long time when I dreamt up the ideas of starting StemExpress. I worked at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital, and Santa Barbara, San Francisco, places in LA. It would have been very, very hard, if not impossible, for me to start. I started StemExpress with $9,000 here in this region. That would have been next to impossible in any of these other areas. And so, I try to say as often as I can, and through mentorship and, working with UC Davis's entrepreneurial groups, and is to really encourage people to look at this region for such incredible wealth that it has in not only students, in hiring, in cost of living, and vicinity to areas like the Bay Area. And I'll just throw out a little shout out too for our region here, is that this last year we started a project with UCSF. We're actually providing cells that are being injected into patients downstream. And I'm so proud to say that those cells come from Sacramento and go to the Bay Area in the work that's being done. And it's just a great example of what we have here and what we have going on, and the more to come.
Wonderful, thank you. Now, to close us out, I'll turn things over to Sandy Sharon, who's Senior Vice President and Area Manager of Kaiser Permanente, and the Greater Sac board member.
Good morning. I'd like to thank today's speaker for lending their expertise to today's conversation. It was a valuable discussion on the future of medicine. We at Greater Sacramento support the continuing research, product development, and adoption of these technologies into the treatment of diseases that will benefit many. We are excited to see this continued growth of life science ecosystem in the Greater Sacramento region. And we want to thank you all for joining us today's webinar.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. Great questions. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.